podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Dr. Billy Garvey, this has been episode 103. It's Fight Club and Beautiful Boys. What are people going to learn this week?
Yeah, so it's one that I maybe spoke way too much for and didn't give you enough airtime because I get really fired up about this. Like, it really matters to me how we're raising boys and the impact it's having on the broader community, especially girls and women. We talk about like what I see in clinic, what's happening from a cultural society perspective, what we can do about it, where some of our weaknesses are and vulnerabilities, and really excited to see what the community sends in because PCP community is so amazing about guiding us with questions and reflections and suggestions.
You just do a really good job of connecting the dots around all of it and raising kids and how do you navigate it and what's really important, particularly like between masculinity, patriarchy. I found it really interesting, like topics that I didn't know much about that I know a lot more now having gone through it with you.
Yeah, well, like everything we do, there's so much you can do to help this, make things better, make our communities healthier and safer. So that's what really matters because we're raising 3 girls and we're going to talk about, how we can do that better.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician.
And I'm Nick, a developing parent.
We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids.
This is Pop Culture Parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. Trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Loving your new T-shirt, actually.
Yeah. I finally got some T-shirts that aren't just different shades of green.
You and I both lean into, I think it's autumnal green is what they call it. We know our palette and we know what it isn't.
Totally, but I don't have a lot of new clothes, so once every couple of years I buy a couple of new things.
Completely agree. I do that sale, Boxing Day sale. I shop for the year, or every year or 2 years I just go bang.
Yeah.
Same company. They're not a sponsor, so I'm not going to mention them. Same company. Because the sizing I know, I like load up and then I put clothes on ice. I like put it in the closet.
I've got
labels
mates that
on.
do that. Yeah. And it's funny because Annalise often then once it gets a bit torn up and beat up, it becomes a gym top. And then there's some that are like, the outfit where it's just all torn and stuff. And I think I'm more derelict than derelict.
Derelict.
To quote Zoolander.
We haven't done Zoolander.
No, God, I'd love to. But,
Can we have Brotherhood or something?
Yes. Yeah, well, slightly close to what we're going to talk about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know the topic yet.
Yeah.
So I know the film, which is exciting.
Yeah, which shows how amazing you are. The only time you ever find out if it's like something that's difficult to pronounce or I need your help about how to actually title it properly. But for this one, I've kept my powder dry just to open it up.
I like to know if it's, I did ask you one question for today. I was like, is it heavy or light?
Well, it's funny. After we listened to the last one for highlights, Annalise is like, great app, your next topic needs to be light. And I have not done that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it. But often like people send in so many suggestions and they're all amazing. Often stuff we've done in the past. So I feel like a broken record, but please go back to the old catalogue. But often it's... I'll have like things that are just trying to jump out at me, topics that I want to talk about, and then something will happen in clinic, and this is what this case is. And so I just kind of, because of what's happening in clinic and because of what's happening in the world, I need to talk about this one.
Okay.
And out of all the topics, I'm hoping this one is not evergreen.
Sure.
The world changes and we don't need this one anymore. But, well, not because of us talking about it, but just because the world getting better at stuff. But before we jump into that.
I was about to say, any housekeeping?
No housekeeping. I'm sure the team are like, really, you forgot
There's so much housekeeping.
There's so many things you need to say. But yeah, amazing. Oh, we had our first Patreon live Q&A, which was awesome.
Oh, yeah?
Bit of disappointment you weren't there.
I might come along to the next one.
Every talk that I do, it's always like, where's Nick? So sometimes it's like a research talk or a conference or something, and I'm like, I know he'd love him to be here, but he might feel like a bit of a fish out of water talking about like randomised controlled trials. But yeah, mate, it was amazing. It was beautiful to have that, because they're obviously helping with sustainability, but it was really cool because it was a bit more intimate. So everyone was just firing questions, and I was like, just as quickly as possible answer, which I love.
Yeah.
Just like answering questions. And
Well, I might come along to the next one and triage a few for you.
yeah,
Surface a couple.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to have you there, mate. So that's watch the Patreon membership jump when this app comes out. And did you know the movie Clue? Only one person got it.
Oh.
That's the first time that has ever happened.
Yeah, I had no idea what you were talking about. And afterwards, I still was trying to pry it out of you.
Yeah. Well, when we get to the movie, we'll talk about the Clue and why I used it. But no housekeeping.
It's good. Okay, good.
Griswolds,
Griswolds, Winslow's. Let's do it.
What do you want to start with?
Randomise me.
Okay.
I don't object to fun. I love fun. In fact, I'm the grand funk master of fun.
I have a theme this week at school. Okay. This is small Winslow, but it has improved so many things. So we it's a really struggled with drop-offs last year. And it was really even late and up until term 4, it was really difficult. I really struggled with it. I'm not sure I don't think the kids maybe even struggle with it as much as the parents. Maybe they do.
Totally. That's my case.
Yeah. I'm doing kiss and go off the bike now. So we pull up on the pushy. I get kiss and go and don't come in and run inside.
Yeah,
and
wow.
that's I couldn't have imagined it. There was trepidation and nerves heading into this year. It was because even up until term 4, it started to get worse, the separation stuff. I'm now doing kiss and go at the gate off the bike. And
Amazing.
It's just not a world I thought I could live in. And for those who have kids at schools, it's 5 days a week. So it's not just it's just smooths things out. And just and they're really excited. The kids pumped. They're like, we're doing kiss and go. I'm like, sure. I occasionally force myself into the school because I like to see what's going on and how they're going at playing. And they're like, no. And then sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, come in. I'm like, okay, I need to see your teacher or whatever.
It's amazing. Well done, mate.
It's just a world away, yeah. So I think some parents could appreciate that. Then also, I guess it's more of a flag. If you're going through that, it can change. And I don't know when and why. Not a lot. And seriously, there's nothing I've done. It just, the worm turns with parenting.
Yeah.
Okay? I know, I don't want to predict, you'd be like, oh, no, you're doing good. But no, sometimes it just changes. I don't know.
Take the credit, mate.
No, it just shifts. And I didn't do anything. She was like, what's
you were
that?
sensitive, responsible, predictable, and consistent. That's what you did.
I tell you, I'm not always those things, let me tell you.
So you don't have to be it always. That's the beautiful thing.
Good. Oh, well, then I'm nailing it. What about you?
What's your next step? They just slowed the bike down a little bit and there's a jump and roll.
I know.
That's amazing. Speaking of that bike, I was going to school talk. Talks of in full flight again. I go interstate tomorrow. I've been doing 2 to 3 talks a week. It's amazing. But yes, I was going in my vintage 20-year-old Subaru. I was driving to a school talk the other night and someone pulls up next to me in a bike, knocks on the window and starts giving me a hard time about how the car needs to be cleaned.
I'll pay for it. We got to join up the road. Just whip it through, mate. It'll add years to it.
Mate, it's like the clothing. I just can't get high enough.
Can I take the car? I'm going to tell you I need to borrow the car this weekend.
It's funny. I think I mentioned it on the podcast about how I had to get valet parked once. Because I was doing a keynoting a conference at one of the fancy hotels in Melbourne and the organisers called me. I was running on time, but they're like, Billy, just so you know, there's no parking around because there's hundreds of people at this conference. And they're like, but we've organised you to get valet parking.
What's that like?
Well, I'm sure it's different to my experience where they scour at you and go get that car out of our driveway and then someone runs down and goes, actually, we're organised at being valet parked. And the person reluctantly takes the keys.
I actually really do like your car. It just needs a bit of scrub. I also, valet for me, I've never experienced valet. I'd struggle to give my keys to someone.
Yeah. Well, when I think about it, it's the only time I've ever had it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's living.
So, yeah. My Winslow, people might have guessed this off Your Beautiful Excitement last episode, but Baby 3 is on the way.
We're talking about it.
So yeah, we just wanted to get to that point.
Do you remember when I looked at you last week and I said something like 3? Oh, could you imagine? And you just looked at me and I was like, don't know where to look.
Well, yeah, we just it's really funny because some people, like, from a kindness perspective, are like, Billy, I can't believe you're doing 3 with how crazy you are. But the kids is the easiest and best bit of my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, it's just they're not the hard bit. They're not the bit that stretches me. Like, my work is, Annalise's training is, like, you know, all my ambitions with Guiding Growing Minds. Those are the things that, you know, make my week to week, day to day challenging. Not my kids. Like, when my kids are such a net positive, and the idea of having another one is amazing. Especially because I talked about this with Evie when we were on the pod. Is that I really struggled to connect with her for the first year. She's 3.5 now. Charlie is 1.5, and I'm really humming with him now. And I remember the first year being hard with him. So I know now that beautiful connection is coming with another little being. And it's funny because Annalise can scan herself because she's an obstetrics doc. And I didn't tell you this, but early on, it looked like it was twins, and one of them didn't make it past that stage. And I had this kind of sadness, but it was funny because... And this is a bit egotistical, but it was sad because I was like, oh man, I could have given that kid a really good life. Like, I had this, really interesting, like, experience with it. And it made me reflect on, like, what the priority is for me and my kids. And a lot of us who have experienced hardship during childhood, that's the priority. It's like, give this kid a really good life. And that's how I am with Evie and Charlie, and now this next bub that's coming. So it's so exciting. And also there's this really exciting bit, which I know you like. You're like this with babies, but I get to watch Annalise with a baby again. Yeah. It's this beautiful thing of watching, like, just her being a real, like, mother. And because she's different to me, she's not as, like, emotional and all over the place. So it stands out more with her. And... yeah, we're so lucky, mate, that we've been able to have 3 babies because, as you know, in our social group, there's people that haven't been able to or have really struggled and all that stuff. So it's such a huge privilege. And
well, that's exciting.
So exciting. Yeah.
Sorry about the part you mentioned before.
But no, it's so, just, mate, I'm so pumped about it.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped about it.
Mate, people that have 3... just cool as cucumber. I swear, it's kind of like the film we're looking at. It's just like they just kind of relinquish a bit of control, and they just everyone I know with 3 is calmer than us who have a couple. Is what I find. I just think they just have this calmness. Yeah, just like, oh, there's 3 of them. Yeah, we're outnumbered.
Yeah, one of our close mates that has 3. He's like, you just accept that you can't meet the emotional needs of all of them ever at once, and. But yeah, so it's so exciting, mate. It's so exciting in part because I get to really celebrate my kids with you.
Awesome.
Like, do you know what I mean? So I get to do it with Annalise a lot, but because she works so much, maybe less than a lot of other people that are lucky enough to parent together. Yeah. With, you know, in couples. Yep. But yeah, it's so exciting, mate. And I can't tell, like, we're very lucky that we, you know, with all of them, we didn't find out because it's like, I feel like, and Annalise agrees, it's like this last win-win surprise where like it doesn't really matter. We just want a healthy baby, and then you get this really excitement on the day. So it's really cool. Now, do you want to check? Have you got a Grizzy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you?
Yeah.
I've had a Grizzy today.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
Just to simply catalogue things in my life, I've just gone with school theme this week. You and I recently went to a school barbecue, informal picnic. Like it was really informal picnic.
Yeah, I rode your coattails.
Yeah, it was really fun. I just made the whole thing from start to finish and found it so tough and didn't really help. I tried to help my kids but didn't do a great job. It was like a twilight. We're here in Melbourne. It's like, you know, daylight savings. It was one of those twilight barbecues. Got there late, didn't bring any food for the kids.
Neither did I.
Yep. Went up to go get the food for the kids. Came back, was the wrong order.
My kids.
And your kids, yep. Came back the wrong order. Kids were cold, even though it was hot, Melbourne things. Went back, came back, kids were dysregulated, had a couple of dysregulated moments with the kids, and I mean there's 600 people there or something. It would have been
it was a big crowd,
hundreds of people, and the moment was too big for my kids, and I didn't anticipate it. I was like, oh yeah, picnic, great idea. You know, be like it was like a party, but it was like 50 parties.
Yeah,
and it was just a lot. Yeah, and I just didn't prepare my kids well, and I just struggled with it. I just found it really tough, and it sort of tainted. I was like, oh, I'm not going back. But it's sort of a shame if I'd actually done a bit of work and said, oh, you know, we're going to do this plan. Hey, it's going to be big. Always come back to me, you know. Didn't do any of that, just rolled in, was a bit nonchalant about the whole thing because I thought, oh, I've got, you know, older kids now, be fine. It just wasn't. I stuffed it up. I don't want to go into it too much of it. I just stuffed it up.
No, it's funny because obviously validate that must have felt awful, but it just shows, and listeners won't be surprised to hear this, how beautiful a friend you are, because I also rocked up without any food, way even less than you did. Annalise was meant to meet me there and came 2 hours later, and she, just not her fault, she got held up in theatre, and I reckon you sensed that I was a bit stressed because I was trying to watch both of them. I didn't really know that many people there. It's chaos, like true Lord of the Flies, and you just grabbed Evie and took her over the playground with your girls, and and it was just your natural instinct, even when you're stressed, to kind of help other people is very on topic, and it's beautiful. And I also went and got the pizzas for my kids and drank a couple of beers.
I just was like, I feel really lucky. I think I talked about my neighbours last week. Really lucky. I got great neighbours, really good community, but I just didn't use any of that and just white knuckled everything and just stuffed it up. Anyway. Less and all that.
You're a
sort
great
of
neighbour, mate. You're the best there is. They're very lucky to have you as a neighbour. So,
hey, Griswold for you?
Yeah, mine's a bit of a funny one. Like I come home after like a long day and I roll in, and the amazing person who looks after Evie and Charlie, because as we've said, like Evie's a kinder now, but the hours weren't long enough for us, so she does a lot of hours. And often, almost every single time, the first thing I come in like so pumped to see the kids, and I'm like really excited and happy and all that stuff. And I just get, it's not time for them to go. That's the first thing. So after like 11, 12 hours, I'm just like, oh man, just really looking forward to seeing you. And so I had one of those days, and then like there was a lot of like dragging feet by Evie and stuff, just normal end of the day tiredness and stuff. And I was trying to get her. Annalise came, we made dinner, and we're like, mealtime is like this tight little 10 minutes that we get where we're not trying to bath them and all that stuff, just to sit there and enjoy them. Charlie like gets about 2 minutes into sitting in the chair and then refuses to sit there anymore. So it's such a tight window. They're all sitting down, and I'm trying to get Evie to come, and she's kind of like just making up excuses and stuff. And because I was tired, I failed, and I got like too firm with her and a bit emotionally. I wasn't calm about it, and I was like, come. And she's just like, I'm coming, but I'm not talking to you. And so she sits down at the table, which is completely normal behaviour for a 3-year-old. She sits down at the table, and I'm like, cool, I'll give it a bit of time, give it a bit of space. Cool, she's eating, she's happy, she's having fun and all that stuff. And so I was like, I'll change the tone now. And I was like, God, you're doing an amazing job. And I was about to say you're eating corn, and she just cuts me off halfway and she goes, remember, I'm not talking to you. And it was like one of the first times we've seen that real like, and Annalise is like trying as hard as she can not to laugh because I just got like cut down, you know, and it was kind of this funny moment, but also she was like, I shouldn't laugh because this is a teachable moment, but it was just one of those times. And it was funny because what I could have done is then come on with more pressure, and I could have put boundaries or consequences or everything. But for some reason, after stuffing it up the first time, I was able to reflect and go, she's tired. She's had like me kind of on top of her a bit. She's just trying to enforce her autonomy and have a bit of an emotional expression, which is okay. And I gave it a bit more time and then connected with her. And then I connected with her, and she was amazing for the rest of the night at bedtime, and the boundaries I needed to put up. But it was just one of those things. Like, I don't know if you have those moments where they do something and your partner like just starts laughing or something like that. And you're like, you know, part of you is like, yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it. It's another one that was really significant that happened that's on topic when we get into the topic. But it's just one of those things about parenting. And my amazing hairdresser, who was a single dad that grew up, talks about how one of the hardest things he found raising his 2 kids on his own was that he had to be the bad cop and the good cop at the same time. And he's like, it was just so hard. And I kind of think about my mum like that now, about being the person that enforces the boundary.
Can one of us be good cop and one of us be bad cop?
Well, this will come into it actually, about how we are different in the way that men and women raise kids and how we raise boys and girls. But let's talk about Fight Club.
Oh, yes. I'm wondering now the scene that you're going to pick.
So Fight Club
line.
Fight Club clue, which for me was so obvious, but everyone kept getting them in like 2 seconds. So I was like, people would message in and be like 2 days later, they'd say the answer to the movie, like Edward Scissorhands, and they'd be like, "Where's my book?" I'm like, about 1,000 people have guessed it before.
Yeah.
But only one person got Fight Club, and the whole clue that I gave was that I couldn't talk about it because that's first two rules of Fight Club.
Yeah,
Yes.
you were more subtle than that though. If you'd said, "I can't talk about it," I would have said, "Fight Club." You go, "Oh, yeah, we'll move on." And I went, "What?" And you went, "Let's move on." I was like, "Give the clue." And then we got off and I was like, "Did you give a clue?" And you go, "Yep." And I went, "Oh,
Well, mate, a lot of people actually used AI to get Edward Scissorhands. So I was like, I'm not going to let it AI be me again. so competitive. But I was so worried no one was going to get it because I was like, then I've gone too hard. But what does this movie mean to you?
Oh, so
yeah,
good.
talk about it because you were excited once I told you.
I loved it when
Fight
you
Club.
told me. It's one of those ones, it's one of those movies, minimum 10 times I've watched it.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I think, spoiler, I mean, yeah, if you're listening to this, there's a couple of spoilers in it. I just love, I hadn't watched it in probably 5 years, but rewatching it now, I swear to you, I still get stuff. I still try to line up how it all kind of works because there's a thing,
How
I don't
the
want to
twist
ruin
is
it.
true.
Yeah, how the
Yeah.
twist is true. I just love it. I think like it hasn't aged at all. Like it's perfect.
Some would say it's more relevant now.
Yeah, I really do. Just like the consumerism side to things and that discussion. I'm like, how did someone do this 26 years ago? And the book's probably 10 years old anyway, however old that is.
96. He wrote it.
96.
Yeah.
So it's 30 years old. And I'm like, it's incredible. I also was reflecting upon you couldn't have cast two people better, particularly Brad. Like, you look at Brad Pitt, he's everything Ed Norton wants to be and can't. And you're like, yeah, the way he dresses, the way he looks, the way he sounds, like his body. I think everyone always, when they see Brad Pitt in it, they're like, holy hell, like, wow.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I know
Why?
there's...
Tell me.
I think like, I'll be honest, like
Yeah,
growing
be
up,
honest, mate.
you're just like, God, I'd like to look like that. Like it's hard. It's
Just
I
look
don't
like
care
that.
now. Yeah, I don't love all of his mannerisms and take what I want sort of stuff. He pinches cars and does whatever he wants, but yeah, he looks cool. Looks like a cool guy.
But it's really funny. Norton
I
talks
care
about
less
how
now,
during the shooting of the movie, they made it so that, and I think it was Norton's idea, Brad Pitt would hit the tanning bed more and more, he'd work out more and more, he'd cut more and more, and Edward Norton slept less and less, looked after himself less and less, lost a lot of weight, so that as the movie goes on,
my
Brad Pitt
God.
visually becomes more appealing and Edward Norton becomes less appealing, like they intentionally did that.
The head shave on Brad Pitt,
Yeah.
which I hadn't really clocked before, but like just that, I was like, wow, he looks fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
But that's how he's meant to, right? Like I can
Totally.
He's
and
meant to look.
It was really close to being Crowe, actually, Russell Crowe in that role.
Yeah.
But we'll just, why are those two actors the ones that they looked at for Tyler?
Oh, Russell Crowe was probably at his height with Gladiator around
Yeah,
in
what
and
did that
around
make
then.
him?
Sex symbol?
Yeah, or hyper masculine.
Hyper masculine. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're both like hyper masculine, and Tyler is this hyper masculine figure. And yeah, I don't know if you know much about. I read that book, and it's
Oh God, I want to read it.
It's really good. Amazingly, Chuck Palahniuk talks about how he thinks the movie's better. And a lot of people would say that. The ending's different. The book is beautiful. It's one of those times in my life. I was in probably the worst time of my life reading that book, maybe 15 years ago. And my mum had just died and I was in a really bad relationship and all this stuff. And it's funny, the book has, and the movie has it a little bit, but the book emphasises it more, of this idea that, you as long as you have material possessions, that will make you happy. And that's the capitalism message in it. And there's a specific commentary on like buying the couch that you'll have for the rest of your life. And I literally did that while I was reading that book. I was living in Brisbane at the time, and I bought, because from inheritance, I had money from my mum's house. I couldn't finish paying off the mortgage, so I had to sell it. I went and literally bought the most expensive couch I could find. We still have them. Like, Annalise really doesn't like them, but I'm like, they cost so much money that I struggle to give them up. And I was in a really unstable relationship, and I was doing it as an anchor. I was like, and Chuck Palahniuk talks about how that gives you stability. At least I have a really good couch. You know, I've got that bit of my life sorted, and that idea of capitalism giving us those materialistic goals. And he's got a phenomenal story. His story. He has multi-generational trauma, and we're going to talk about that in the setting of masculinity. But he has multi-generational trauma. Horrifically, his granddad had a head injury working on the wharfs in World War II and came home and was sure that his wife, so Chuck Palahniuk's grandmother, was cheating on him, and he murdered her and looked around the house for the two little boys that were home and killed one of them, and couldn't find Chuck Palahniuk because he hid under the bed that his mum had been killed on. His mum, Chuck Palahniuk's grandmother. And that guy went on and went through horrific trauma his whole life. Obviously, that's hugely traumatic. Chuck Palahniuk's dad had multiple, destructive relationships with women and ended up getting murdered and died under a bed by a violent male who did? Chuck Palahniuk's father. And so Chuck Palahniuk had this really tumultuous relationship with his father, who, remember, we passed down the idea of masculinity, and it's what we're going to talk about.
Do we?
And Chuck Palahniuk talks about how he came out as gay unintentionally because he was worried the media were going to sabotage him, because he mentioned it unintentionally in an interview, and the person wasn't going to, but he came out because he was really worried about it. And I think it's really funny. People talk about, and I wonder if you can comment on this, the change in perspective of Fight Club through the decades as a male. I think that a lot of us, when we were younger, looked at it and we were like, look how tough he is, look how he just takes what he wants. And the physicality of it, and the kind of they just fight, and what Fight Club really is, and Chuck Palahniuk talks about this. A lot of people misinterpret it, but it's a criticism of that. It's a criticism of how men can't have connection, and they can't have feelings, and they can't have expressions except for anger. And Fight Club starts with Edward Norton going to all these help groups where he's trying to have feelings. He's stuck. So it's almost the opposite. It's kind of a commentary on The Graduate and Rebel Without a Cause. Both of those are about young men that come out with so much opportunity and they feel lost. I don't know how much you know those stories, but Rebel Without a Cause, like James Dean, only ever in 3 movies. How iconic is that? That one, East of Eden and Giant. And Rebel Without a Cause is really a commentary on how lost he feels because he doesn't know where to go. And there's really bad masculine portrayals in that. And then The Graduate, obviously The Graduate is the same, feels really lost, a lot of sexualized behavior. And then what the Fight Club talks about is that as men, how he has no opportunity, he's in a job he hates, and he doesn't have any feeling, he doesn't have a connection, he's seeking material possession. And then he knows something's missing, so he goes to all these self-help groups, but he's not really, he doesn't belong there. So he finally starts sleeping because he's crying, so he has this emotional cathartic expression. Yep. But then Marla comes in and taints it for him because she's doing the same thing, so he can't be there. So the next thing he does for connection is he creates an alter ego and then starts violently interacting with other men. And that idea of the only way we can express our feelings and actually seek connection and embrace with men being through violence is really prevalent in our communities. And you think about it, you don't have this in you, and this is why I think you're really important. You're not raising a boy. I am. You will have an influence on him, a really good one. You're one of the healthiest men that I know. You don't have any hostility and violence in you. Even though you practice a martial art, you get the benefit of it, which is one in which it helps your mental health and your physical health, but it doesn't bring that out in you. You have confrontation with a male. There's no risk of you going towards it.
I'd run.
But that's actually healthy masculinity. I've talked about this before on other podcasts, not ours, but I grew up watching men be violent to my mum. I experienced things that were so traumatic I can't mention them on the podcast. They influenced how I feel about men. And this is the problem that's happening in the world. I took it, and that is, I've never, ever, ever in my life started a fight. I've never walked away from one because I would beat myself up more than someone else could if I did that, because the fragility in my self-esteem is tied to masculine behaviour being driven by that. And I will forever in my life remember the time as a young teenager where I stood up to one of those men, not my dad. My dad wasn't like that. He was gone long before any of this happened. And that was intoxicating. that feeling
Okay.
of like standing up to an adult who'd done that to my mum, and I will never forget that in my life. And it's one of those things, like there's people worry that there's something wrong with masculinity. There's a lot wrong with toxic masculinity, but it's actually
What's the
patriarchy. So like, I don't know how much you know about patriarchy. but-
Explain some of this stuff.
So patriarchy is the idea that men hold the power and everything in society is driven by that. And it's true. If you think about a lot of religious figureheads are men, a lot of religious messages are men will serve, women will serve men. You know, even Confucius used to be about a woman is owned by her father, then she is the possession of her husband. And if her husband dies and she's widowed, she's the possession of her oldest male child. Like this is prevalent through obviously so much Western culture and all this stuff. And I grew up and raised by a feminist mother, but because of patriarchy, she was still not able to have that control. And financially, think about all the big institutions, think about all the control that is led by men, and men hold that power. This is getting worse now. You know, if you think about it, what do you reckon the lifetime risk is? And this is a really heavy topic.
Okay,
Really heavy
right.
topic. But this is Fight Club. Like Fight Club, actually, a lot of people interpret it as, it just shows how important that need for physicality is in boys, which is true. Boys are more likely, because of hyperactivity, they have a difference between girls. They're more likely to be hyperactive, and we'll talk more about the differences in a minute. They need physical activity. They do not need violence.
Yep.
Violence is not...
No, violence is not good.
Of
Violence
course
is
it's not good.
bad.
And what do you reckon the lifetime risk of one of our girls experiencing intimate partner violence is?
I don't want to know.
I know you, yes, it's a really hard thing to talk about, isn't it? I'm really worried we're going to stuff this up. Like,
Okay. What is it?
It's 30%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Like one of the biggest predictors of adult mental illness and being a victim or a perpetrator of intimate partner violence is experiencing it when you're growing up. I experienced it growing up. One of the biggest predictors of mental illness or being a victim or a perpetrator of intimate partner violence is experiencing it growing up as a kid.
So if they see it, they're more likely to
have mental illness,
Sorry,
then become
yeah.
a victim themselves because
become
that's
a
what
victim?
a normal relationship is. I watched it happen to my mum, so actually there is an expectation that if I don't,
that's
if
what I
I
was
talk
getting
back
at.
to my male partner, it's okay for him to strike me. You know, like this is the stuff that and you know, I think we have the ability, if we do this properly and we utilise the best thing about this podcast, which is the PCP community, that we can actually put some messages out there that push back and challenge that. And, you know, it really pisses me off because I grew up being raised by a feminist, and feminism is doing all the heavy lifting in this space. You look at all the stuff that's going on at the moment, and we hate being topical on this podcast, but I hope it goes away. There's so much unhealthy, toxic masculinity messaging that's going out, and who is challenging it? There are some men, but mainly it's women saying this is unacceptable.
Yep.
You know, like you probably have never heard of this woman. There's an amazing woman she passed away a few years ago, Professor Bell Hooks, and she talks about The Will to Change. It's this beautiful book about really how feminism can actually be a guiding principle because patriarchy and toxic masculinity hurts men as well.
Yeah, it does. Yep, I can see that.
You know
yeah,
that,
totally
don't you?
agree.
Like, yeah, and so it's funny, just to lighten it a little bit. I was trying to find one of Bell Hooks' books, and I called up like the amazing bookstore in Melbourne, and I was like, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have it." Shout out to Readings. It was Readings. They don't sponsor us, but and they're often not sold out and restocking my book. So maybe I shouldn't be giving a shout out, but they're amazing. They're an institution. I love them. I called up this guy. This is a phone, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm chasing this book." And he's like, yeah. He's like, actually, we don't have it. Another store does. Can I take your name? I was like, oh, yeah, it's Billy Garvey. This is my number. And he's like, my wife spends more time with you than she does with me. I was just had a really good laugh. And the funny thing is, he recommended another Bell Hooks book. He's like, my wife and I are reading this book. It's phenomenal. You should read that. It's really hard to get.
So Bell Hooks has passed away. She was what, 60, 70 sort of stuff?
Who kind of grew up in like African American culture, and she talks about how she talks about like people in her family, the first time they embraced their father as daughters was when they died and holding the body, because she's like, it just wasn't how dads were, and dads are changing. But there's like so much, and you're beautiful like this, mate. I know that you're feeling weight because I'm doing another heavy topic, and it's a hard one to talk about. This matters because the podcast is really about how can we make sure that the people in our kids' future are healthy, pro-social, respectful,
Yep.
and never even go anywhere near that. And I saw, often it's the kids in clinic I saw this gorgeous kid in his mid-teens last week who is having a really, really hard time, and he's had a really, really hard time for a long time now, getting picked on, physically beaten up, all this stuff. He's a really sensitive temperament, gorgeous kid. And he started doing BJJ.
Oh, yeah?
And he's loving it. But you know what he said to me? And this is not you, and
Okay,
this is not
go.
most
Just
people
say
that are
it,
doing it. He's like, yeah, I really like it, but I've noticed that I become violent to solve problems now.
Okay.
He's like, even when my little siblings are annoying me, and he's like, I never used to do that, and I'm worried it's coming from that. Now, those places can be really healthy, just like sporting clubs, but they can also reinforce toxic beliefs and attitudes, can't they? Like, think about, this is going to be hard for you to say, but I'm not in this world, so I can say it. I remember growing up watching these footy players, and they'd be cheating on their wives and all this stuff, and everyone would go, yeah, but they're a great footy player, And I was like, that's the messaging you're sending to boys and girls, is that as long as you're big and tall and good athletically, those behaviours are okay. And it's not, I've spoken about this in groups before, and I remember pitching it to one group and saying we need to do something about how we're raising boys. And they're like, yeah, definitely. But I think we need like a big footy player to come in and talk about it. I was like, oh man, that's just patriarchy and that's toxic masculinity saying those people should be guiding us. Now, they have a really important lived experience. Give attention to it. But if they don't understand the research, and also we need to put up lots of different options of what a healthy male can be.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing. I had my most beautiful moment in clinic this year was recently. Go.
When does so much? I haven't said much for about 10 minutes.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No, this is a risk. I need you here because I soapbox about this.
That's okay.
So fired up about it.
Explain the difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity, and what's the kind of tipping point? Can you just sort of
because
masculinity is healthy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Toxic masculinity is unhealthy. I know that. I'm not stupid, but I don't. Tell me, what's the tip? How does it?
So the
is there a
tip
tipping
is really
point or
interesting
something?
because what a man is changed historically. You think about like what a man was in Greeks, and Aristotle was hopeless in this space. He was really patriarchal. He was really like men are better than women. No one remembers that. Plato was the opposite. Plato was egalitarian. People talk about the Spartans as like this hyper masculine. The Spartans actually really respected women and saw women as leaders and warriors and all that kind of stuff. So,
sadly, I only know that from 300. Go on.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. But it's often this hyper masculine Spartan like stuff. Anyway, what happened culturally was that, we needed men to go to war. So we started talking about violence being a masculine feature that was desirable. Push down your feelings, go to war, go and fight for what you believe in.
Gotcha.
Anytime women's rights increases, toxic masculinity responds and comes up with it. So we know that that's happened anytime. So a really toxic masculine belief is homophobia, and anytime gay rights increase, toxic masculinity rises because there's a fragility in toxic masculinity that says I have to hold all the power. And those people are not as good as me. They're not as powerful as me, and that fragility comes in. And what you grow up with influences that. My mum's two best friends were two gay guys. And so when I hit that in primary school, like my little brother's godparents were these lovely guys, Ron and Doug. And it didn't make sense to me when people were homophobic when I first started hearing that in primary school because I grew up around a healthy representation of that. And so a lot of kids don't. And then this social influence of kids making fun and teasing and mocking or talking about women like that and all of that stuff. And so healthy masculinity is one. So when a lot of immigrants started moving into places, once again, insecurity, hypermasculinity, this is my right, I own this property, I own these jobs, I own this wealth, you can't take that from me.
So hypermasculinity is something that bubbles up or comes back when masculinity is threatened?
When patriarchy is threatened, yes.
Patriarchy is threatened.
When the power of men is threatened.
When the power of men is threatened.
But healthy masculinity is actually, if you think about it, chivalry. If you think about I look after everyone. I'm emotionally sensitive.
Okay,
that's the amazing thing. People talk about Don Draper and idolise him. Annalise and I started watching Mad Men recently. He's a damaged kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But everyone looks at him and goes, look how tough he is. He just grits his teeth.
I like Heath Ledger characters.
Yeah.
You always seem to play.
Beautiful.
He used to always play, not always, and Joker's not a good example, but So many of his roles, I
Brokeback
felt like he
Mountain's
was,
beautiful,
he was
Two Hands is
chivalrous.
beautiful.
Yeah.
He was in real life as well. He has a go at a reporter one time because they talk about like homophobic comments, and he shoots them down and says, "You don't decide what love is."
Yeah.
Like, and that's a beautiful use of the strength in masculinity, is looking after
Don't
each other,
decide what love
being
is.
chivalrous, like, you know, all of that
He's
stuff.
deep, man.
Yeah, he was phenomenal, but wrecked with mental illness. You know what I mean? And yeah, so it's this really interesting thing about that's the difference. We should very aggressively challenge patriarchy, realizing that it's hurting a lot of men and boys, and it's really hurting a lot of girls and women. Like, this shouldn't exist. You think about, like, so depression, for example, depression in primary school age kids, the rates are the same. The depression in high school kids, girls are twice as likely to experience depression. And a lot of it is because the vulnerability in how society starts seeing them when puberty hits, and also the reality that, like, who comes around and protects them? Do you know what I mean? A lot of our social norms say women are objects, you know, men conquest. Do you know, like, and you think about it, when men show any sensitivity, that's gay.
Yep.
It's not masculine. It's not a man. He's got feelings. Annalise, Evie's 3.5. A year ago, we were driving in the car, and Annalise goes, "I'm a boy." Evie goes, "I'm a boy," and Annalise goes, "How come you're a boy?" And she said, "Because boys don't cry." She's 2.5. She's already learnt that. And Annalise is like, "Well, your dad cries all the time," and a little bit lighthearted dig at me. And I was like, I adore Annalise, but I was like, you can't laugh about that. Like, we need to show that's healthy and normal. But she's still like that. Evie's got an alter ego and an imaginary friend that's a boy. And whenever she gets stressed about something, she becomes him. Whenever she needs courage, Right,
okay.
Because she's learnt that. She's learnt in the world that boys get to push in front, boys get to take what they want. And we know that developmentally. Boys are way more likely to be assertive, but in an unintentional way. They're way more likely to be hyperactive. They're way less likely to be pro-social. Their language development is often behind. Charlie's a classic example of that. Charlie's 18 months. He's got like one word. He's really behind his language development. He can throw a ball phenomenally. Now, the risk is that what I do and what all of us do is that I practice throwing the ball with him. I don't read to him, though, because it feels crap. He hates it.
But he likes
so I don't reinforce it. He likes throwing the ball. So I celebrate him throwing the ball. And we were at a playground about 6 months ago, and I was so angry. I came out and Annalise is consoling Evie, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, that boy over there just came over and pushed her to the ground for no reason." And she's like, "I didn't get to it in time because she had Charlie." And I'm watching this dad with this little boy, and I was like, "Did he do anything?" And she's like, "Nah, he's kicking the footy with him." And I'm like, "Mate, his success in life is not going to be determined by how good he is at kicking that footy. It's you going in and redirecting him and teaching him that's not okay and what is okay." And I was so angry. I was like, really, this toxic masculinity in me was firing up. And then this dad comes over and taps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, are you Billy Garvey?" And my faith in the world was restored, because then he brought his kids over and they played with Evie and Charlie, and he's this beautiful person that listens to our podcast. But it's, you know, like, that's unacceptable. And Evie's already suffering that. And the studies have shown that little babies, where you can't tell looking at them if they're a boy or a girl, if you dress the boys in pink and the girls in blue, they will treat them differently. We're more comforting to girls. We give boys a pass on antisocial behaviour, because boys will be boys. I hate that saying. From babies, we're different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And girls are way more likely to be pro-social, to be collaborative, to look after people, to be compassionate. They're way more advanced in their language development. And that's when it starts. Like, everyone worries about, like, these boys that are running around breaking into houses and all the antisocial behaviour, and we come down with consequences, put them in jail longer, put them in jail younger. It starts when they're little. And one of the best things that you can do is support mums when they're pregnant. That's one of the best investments that you can make. And
What do you mean?
So you put support around them, put mental health support, help reduce their stress, whether it's poverty, whether it's bad relationships.
Around mum?
Yeah, around pregnant mothers.
How does this...
That's when it starts, because if that pregnant mother is experiencing interpersonal violence, so, you know, intimate partner violence, then that baby is born into a world where already their brain has experienced the stress hormones from mum.
Right.
And then they come out unstable.
Gotcha.
And they witness it and experience it. And that's why, like, the idea of, like, stay together for the kids, the evidence shows very strongly that if you're raised by a single parent versus a dysfunctional household, especially if there's intimate partner violence, the kids raised by the single parent always come out better.
Right. Yep.
One adult that keeps you safe, like in the house. And sorry, I'm being really ranty, but I promise
That's
I'll
okay.
get a bit better. So
I'm trying to figure out how to ask questions, to be honest.
Well, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I'll tell the last one and then I'll stop talking at you.
That's okay.
So I'm sitting in clinic and I get a message and it says, this kid wants an appointment.
Yep.
He's nearly 20. I discharged him.
Have you seen him before? Have you seen him before?
Seen him for years. Really tough, like childhood, really tough adolescence. One of the classic kids that no one wanted to see, and like I got to see him. We saw a kid yesterday that was the first time me meeting him like this, and my highlight of my week was he shook my hand at the end of meeting him. So I was like, man, that's awesome, because he just didn't want to be there and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
And I just talked to him about stuff. Anyway, so this kid, and I'm like, yeah, cool, because I said to him, I remember saying it to him, I say this to a lot of my teen boys, where I'm like, if you ever need anything, reach out. Like, you finished here, you're doing amazing, congratulations. You're 18. Finished school, like just reach out. So he comes in. I hadn't seen him in a year and a half, I reckon. And I'm like, how you going, mate? And I could just tell something's going on. And he's this beautiful kid. And he's telling me about a bit of the hard time he's having with work and money and relationships and this stuff. But I could tell he wasn't really getting to me. And he's like, yeah, and there's just some stuff I can't stop thinking about. And I was like, what are you holding, mate? Like, what are you holding? And he's like, I can't stop thinking about cowering behind my mum as a little kid while my dad was trying to get to me and beating her up. And he just burst into tears. And I cried with him in that room. There's two men, he's a man now, like crying about that experience. And I was like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I remember that. And so and this gorgeous kid who has no violence in him, he's a beautiful, compassionate human. And what a privilege that I get to be the person he talks to about that. But we've got to stop this, because it's just cycling through generations. And I think that, this is the thing that stresses me. I was on a podcast the other day and they're like, what are you worried about, Billy? And it's this, and it's how I raised Charlie. I don't want to teach Evie that she can't walk alone at night, or she's got to be careful what she dresses, or she can't drink too much when she's out. I want to teach Charlie what healthy masculinity is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But you and I, that's what we're worried about, mate. Like, it's, how do we do better than this? And our social representations through culture have got to be better. We are showing boys that men don't have feelings. Anger's the only one, and it's expressed through violence in real men.
Yep.
You do this, so I need Charlie around you lots. You're a beautiful male. And it's funny, I was even found myself doing this. This is why I think the episode should be called Beautiful Boys. Because what Google research shows is that the most likely way you end the sentence of, is my son, it's smart. Is my son smart? That's the most likely thing people will ask about a son on Google, which is ridiculous. How does Google answer that? What do you reckon is the most likely thing they'll say is my daughter?
Oh, I don't want to know.
Beautiful.
I knew you were going to say that.
And so I make a point. I struggled with it at first. When Charlie was like maybe 6 months ago and he'd play up a bit, I found myself chastising him and calling him mate in a negative way. I'd be like, mate, stop doing that. I never did that to Evie. I gave her the support that she needed, and I was coming down hard on him. And that's what we know. Mums and dads come down hard.
So how do you catch yourself?
So do you know what I do?
What?
I smother him with affection. I give him kisses and cuddles. I call him beautiful. I call him gorgeous. I do all those things. I want to make sure he always feels like every feeling he's having is valid. That sensitivity is a strength in him. That, the way that he treats everyone, including women, but, sexual and gender minorities are the most vulnerable to intimate partner violence. So if you're trans or gay, I told you this story, I was riding my bike to the gym the other day and I rode past a bunch of tradies and they said, hey mate, how you going? And I could tell they were preparing to show off in front of each other, and I wear a helmet that's white with a rainbow on it. And I was like, good guys, how you going? And as I went past them, just they waited for me to go past, they started shouting homophobic slurs at me. And everything in my blood was boiling, and I shouted at them, And it took everything in me not to ride back there. It would have beaten the crap out of me. But I can't handle that. I think it's unacceptable in 2025 that stuff happens. And it just gets reinforced by the way that we parent boys, by the way that we tell girls that, you know, if you step out of line, you kind of were asking for it a bit. Like it's unacceptable. And our social influences are really big predictors of this.
Yeah, all right. I've got to think about this. Because, yeah,
it's heavy.
All the things that you've said, I do. Yeah, but I do it worse. I'm not as considerate as you with that stuff. Okay. Oh, far out.
You're great, mate. You are.
That's right. I can get better at this. I can get better. No. But like that stuff you're saying, like how you speak to baby boys and how you speak to baby girls. Like, yep, I do all that stuff wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Why do you reckon girls are better at caring? It's one of the things we do.
We are generous with our affection and love.
Yeah, better answer than the one I was going to give. Yeah. What else do we do? What do girls play with when they're little?
Dolls.
Yeah. What do they do with those dolls?
They look after them.
Yeah. What do boys do?
Hulk smash.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what all boys do. Yeah, but
there's no skill in looking after someone in doing that, is there?
No, they're not skilling up in looking after something. That's true.
You can't build narratives and pretend play and all that stuff. I wonder if baby's upset. What would baby like? All of that stuff. That teaches kids very early on empathy. And you can teach kids empathy. A lot of people teach kids empathy. Not a lot of people understand how you teach kids empathy.
How do you do it?
You understand where the developmentally appropriate stage is. Yeah. Remembering that when does empathy start?
I can't like straight away with your eyes.
Beautiful, mate. So how do we know that a baby has empathy?
A baby.
Yeah. It's a very hard question.
I don't know.
My fellows would be able to answer this. Because a baby will cry when another baby cries.
Oh, yeah.
They don't
Contagion.
need to be fed.
Yep.
They don't need to be changed. They're not cold or too hot.
They're just raising alarm for the other kid.
Yeah. And then what we know is very egocentrically, the first step that they'll go through beyond that is someone else is hurt and they want support and comfort. And you'll see that. Like you probably remember this, the girls. If someone else had a stack on the playground, they'd come over and want to cuddle because they're nowhere near understanding that person needs support. They just go, something bad happened, I need support. And that's empathy because nothing bad has happened to them. But they sense that experience in the other person.
Yeah,
that's a social, emotional connection. The next stage is still superficial egocentric empathy, where they go, you want support, but I'll give you what I think I would want. And that's the kids that like give the firm hug. And the kids like, I don't want this hug. But they're like, this is what I would want. And then late preschool, early primary school, they develop empathy that is really based on, I wonder what this kid wants. And teaching kids that is very important. And from 4 to 5 years of age, you can start to teach kids, what do you think that person wants and needs help with? Okay. But we start playing with kids at a young age. And that's why sport has been amazing for women, because it's extended their possibilities of play. They can have rough play. They can play footy. That's happened in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The opposite hasn't happened for boys, has it?
What? Hang on.
Boys still, it's footy.
Oh, it's still footy. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they don't play.
But if they do drama...
Yeah.
If they do dress-ups. I still remember a little boy in childcare, this is over 20 years ago, and his dad was furious. He was like in prep, and he'd always been in dress-up. And his dad was furious every time he came and picked him up. And he was dressed up in like the princess stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because he couldn't handle it. The patriarchy and toxic masculinity in that dad was, how dare he dress up as a girl. Kid loved it. Do you know what I mean? And it was just... Yeah, but how awful that we limit the opportunity of boys early on in their play and emotional expression to say it has to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah, got me thinking. Yeah.
Shall we do the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Okay.
I feel like I'm beating you up. But I feel like you are, mate. You're a beautiful, you're an all-star for me with this. You've got better emotional regulation than I do.
Nope.
Your masculinity is defined, mate. You can wear a straw hat and a pink
but I don't. I have the same thing. It's not. So, but I've got to work on it.
Yeah, I know you hate compliments, but you do, mate. You help guide me with that stuff. And you're beautiful. Like, you push back against those things. You're often the person in the kitchen making dinner. Your girls are watching that. But you know what I mean? Your girls are watching that. And the expectations that they will have is that in a future
so that's good.
Yeah, in a future male partner, it's not my job to make dinner. It's not my job to always clean up.
Yeah.
It's not my job. You know what I mean? Like they're watching us.
Right.
Evie's watching me and Annalise and deciding what a healthy relationship is.
Yeah.
If I'm perpetrating intimate partner violence on her, no one's showing Evie anything different. She just goes, that's normal.
No. Yeah, I got you.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
So in the small ways and things like that, you being vulnerable, you going to Henry for help emotionally when you're struggling in front of the kids, shows them that's what a healthy male does.
Yeah.
From cleaning the house, making the dinner, doing all that stuff. So like Annalise is the head of our house, not me. It's because it's a better functioning one, just like a matriarchal society is more protective of everyone and shares power versus a patriarchal one.
Yes.
You do that.
Okay.
You empower Henry, you lift Henry, you know what I mean? You support Henry.
Yep.
And that's the girls are watching that, and that's what they'll expect from future partners, regardless of whether they're straight or gay.
Okay.
They go, that's what a healthy relationship looks like.
Okay.
The scene is about halfway through the movie. Huh?
On the bus?
No, it's just the bus bit.
No, well, they talk about is that what a real man looks like? No, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No.
I actually think that was my
and
second
I reckon I know the other. Go, you go.
Yeah, so they're in Fight Club, and they're kind of in the basement, and they're all having a fight, and they're all idolizing Tyler, which we shouldn't do.
No.
And Tyler gives a speech,
which I have done.
Yeah.
I've looked at Tyler historically.
Yeah,
I know. I shouldn't.
Tyler's an unhealthy representation of what Edward Norton's character.
No, that's
was
right.
Unable to deal with.
Yes.
in his own insecurities.
I totally. I see it. Like I've evolved. I saw the film 26 years ago, but when I was a kid, I was like, oh man.
Yeah. That's the beautiful change with it. And patriarchy and capitalism go well together about controlling us. But anyway. So the scene is, Tyler's and they're all really excited because they've all just watched other men beating each other up, which is wild. Anyway, I won't get too deep into that. But and then we're going to hear Tyler talking to all these men who are lost and think that they're found now because they have a way to connect with other men and embrace them through violence because there's no other way. And we're going to hear what Tyler says to them.
Okay.
Look around. I see a lot of new faces. Shut up! Which means a lot of you have been breaking the first 2 rules of Fight Club. Man, I see in Fight Club the strongest and smartest men who've ever lived. I see all this potential, and I see it squandered. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off.
Yeah, I feel like that. Do you feel like that pressure's been exerted on you?
What pressure?
Of you're going to be a movie star, you're going to be wealthy, that's what success looks like.
Yeah, well, I did want to be an actor growing up, so.
Yeah, could have been a great one. I was looking at the live show tour. Nick is phenomenal on stage. Especially as, I don't want to break any scenes because we're going to probably change the scenes every time.
Yep.
But yes, so I think I picked this scene because it's calling out, it actually shows us where one of the greatest vulnerabilities is in boys and men that are coming up is they feel lost. And that's why we have to bring them along. They feel lost and so they get captured by these false idols. And, not most of the people who do martial arts are not suffering this. Most people who, big pickup trucks have become a really big thing, big SUVs and trucks. Like a lot of men, that's masculinity. That's how I show that I'm a man. I drive a really big car. You're 2 times more likely to be in an accident. And when you tell people sometimes that drive those cars, yeah, but I'll be safe. That's patriarchal. All it matters is me. I drive around and show everyone how big I am in a big car. Right. A kid who's hit by that car is 8 times more likely to die versus a sedan.
All right.
It's crazy. Think about if you're.
I ride a bike a lot.
Yeah, I ride a bike all the time. I'm the same as you. I hate driving cars. because people chip in about how messy they are from the sidelines at the lights. No, it was a beautiful moment actually. But so it's this really important thing, and we often wonder, like, why are so many boys getting caught up in this toxic masculinity and these like false idols that tell them women are possessions and all this stuff? We have to bring them along with us, and we have to create better messaging about actually you'll have a richer emotional experience if you come and be a part of a community that looks after you and supports you and catches you way before you get any of that behaviour. And it starts as little boys. And I see that everywhere. I sat with a group years and years and years ago, and they were talking about how there's 4 types of men. They were like, there's men who really have healthy attitudes towards women and they really work on it. There's men that have unhealthy attitudes towards women and they're working on it. They're trying to get better. There's men that have unhealthy attitudes towards women and they're not working on it, but they're receptive when they get educated to being better. And then there's men who have unhealthy attitudes to women and they've got no interest in changing.
Yeah.
And I said, and they're like, we work with the 2 middle groups. I'm like, who works with the last group? She's like, no one. And they're the most damaging to all of us, including our boys, because they capture them and take them along and say, I'll listen to you. And if you think about some of the political stuff that's happening from a patriarchal capitalistic perspective at the moment, it's saying, I will give you what you deserve. Come over to me. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that male leadership is really unhealthy.
I know exactly what you mean.
We got skin in this game. We're raising girls.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
How do you, but okay, Billy, so, because I raise girls. Is there stuff I can do and model? And yes, I can influence your son because I'm close to him.
But you're also a man.
What else can I do though?
You're a man.
Is it just model it? You model it, yeah.
Because remember, you are forming the archetype for them of what a male is.
I know.
You're doing it beautifully, mate.
No.
You're giving you a pat on the back.
But like, I do it well sometimes.
So
but
show feelings, show compassion, look after people that don't have as much power as you. Share your power, share your influence. Help other boys express their needs.
Help vulnerable people.
Help girls have healthy assertiveness.
Yeah.
I have to help Evie with that. Do you know what I mean? She's getting better, but I worry sometimes she's getting better in an unhealthy way because she's role modelling off the boys that she watches just push past everyone.
Right, so she'll just push past. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I need to know about what the healthy model, like what the healthy lessons are. Yeah. I need those.
Yeah, but you're doing it. And also, catch your girls when you see them going, well, I should just stand to the side because there's boys playing now and I should just watch them. You know what I mean? I shouldn't be a part of this play.
I struggle with that, to be honest, is like because I'm trying to protect them.
Yeah, same.
It's bloody hard.
Yeah. So
I hope we get tough questions on that.
Yeah, so I want some really tough questions. I hope we've done this justice. It's a bit like even more so than the neurodiversity one. Like I just think men need to be more accountable for this space because we're not doing enough. And I think we have an opportunity. There's lots of stuff I care about that I don't feel well informed to. Like I really care about the environment. I don't have a lot of expertise or training in that. I have a lot of expertise and training in how we raise boys.
Yeah.
You know, and the trajectory that a lot of these kids will go on. Like high levels of aggressiveness in young age as a small group of boys, that aggressive behaviours peak about 18 months to 2-3 years of age.
Yeah.
And there's a group of boys that continue with it. And then they become adolescents that are violent, and then they become men that are violent. And if we can catch them in those early age and understand how to respond to it. So hopefully we'll get questions about that. We can talk about that. How do we elevate, how do we push back against some of these stereotypes as a society, as a culture, as individual people guiding parents? I'd love some reflections. One of the beautiful things that happens for us on this podcast is men reach out and say, I'm now finally feel like it's okay to go and see a therapist. That's like a huge win for us.
Great.
So we want, kind of stories that can guide us, advice from people that work in this space. I don't do enough with juvenile detention and stuff like that. I often do advocacy stuff, but I'd love to work closer with those kids. Like I'd love to people reach out and think about how we can actually use this platform from what they send in, and then lots of questions about how do we guide this would be really helpful.
Yeah, how do we guide it, both boys and girls? That's the stuff I'm really interested in. Like, how do I do it? Beyond modelling, I want like practical stuff around even those tricky situations.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Because that's where I...
Yeah, we've gone too long now, but it's such a good question. I should have given you more space so that I could...
No. This is what... Mate, someone will articulate this a lot better than I can in the next fortnight. And in fact, I want your questions early. Sorry. So we're just trying to build a bit of capacity for Dr. Billy. And what we're going to do is once we release the episode... really good if you get your questions in very early because we're need to protect you and your time.
Well, yeah, a lot of stuff
because you're
comes
doing
in
stuff
late,
until
and
midnight
so,
the night before, and I'm like, no. I've told Billy, I've advised Billy that he's got to shut the window a couple of days early, which would be up to around kind of the Monday.
Yeah. If you can get it in the first week, that'd be awesome.
First week, guys.
Yeah.
So first week, just because.
There's just so many, and they're all so amazing. And
They're great.
every time we have to cut phenomenal questions because they come in too late.
Yeah.
But keep sending them in because they keep informing what we do in the future.
It
but
does.
The sooner the better. It gives us more time to use them.
Expecting there's going to be a couple parts to this one, Billy, if I'm honest. This is going to be a big topic.
Well, it's really important, mate. I'm sorry that it's a heavy one followed by a heavy. I'm sorry I haven't given you enough of a voice in this time because I'm just so passionate. I've had this fire in me for years and years and years.
Yep.
And just what's happened lately in clinic and what's happening lately in the world is just, I can't hold it anymore.
Yep. I think, we give it plenty of space will be the important thing.
So PCP community, do your thing, guide us. You're amazing.
Yep. All right, guys, thanks very much. You know where to get us at via Instagram or via TikTok or via YouTube. But send emails, please. It's a really good way for us to catalogue a lot of those, and that is popcultureparenting@gmail.com. So send those through. Every email is viewed. Hope you enjoyed the episode, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks, Billy.
Mother smell that beer on your breath, she'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.